You are now listening to the fastest show on iSports Radio. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr. Welcoming you to another lap of extra mile for today, October 21st, 2021, and it is the championship push. NASCAR and Formula One entering its final stanzas. IndyCar or Formula One's going to be in Coda. NASCAR is going to be in Kansas. We'll talk about it all here. And to join me, of course, are my co-hosts Michael Ward and Christopher Lehman.
How's it going tonight, guys?
Hello.
Hope you guys are doing well. Hope everyone out there in the chat is doing well as well. If you want to make a comment, remember to drop your comments there in the chat. We'll read them out on the air. We're going to go ahead and get started, and we will acknowledge we had some not so good news in NASCAR this week, unfortunately. A lot of drivers getting arrested for stupid stuff. That's all we're going to go there. We just wanted to acknowledge that anything happened. We're not going to get into any further discussion of the situation. But we will go on to what happened in Texas, which was simply, guys, Kyle Larson put a rubber stamp on his spot in the championship 4. Coming into this round, he only really needed to get out of Texas without any real issues, and he just goes out there, dominates, wins the thing. For a long time this season, he has looked like the odds-on favorite as the champion. I've got him as a shoo-in to win that title. Did that race on Sunday sway you that no matter who gets into that championship 4 with Larson, it's going to be Larson coming out with the title?
I think he's got a pretty great shot. I don't know if he'll win it, but he's got a pretty strong shot at winning it just based on that performance yesterday, that weekend.
Yeah, I'm going to be eating a lot of crow over my thoughts on Kyle Larson this year. For sure, I didn't have him winning a race, and here we are. He's won 8. And interesting. So I looked it up, and he's got 14 career wins. And if you think about it, 8 of them came this year. I thought Larson probably had more wins overall, to be honest with you, but you're talking about more than half of his career wins have come this year. And I have a lot of crow to eat, guys. A lot.
I also said he wasn't going to win the championship this year. I said he wasn't going to win a race.
That's what I said. I didn't have him winning a race either.
Yeah, I believe at the start of the season we talked about whether or not he'd make the playoffs, and I said no. I thought he was going to struggle. Proved me wrong. Proved a lot of people wrong. But what does this say about Kyle Larson's legacy? Because we always knew he had this in him. And a lot of people talked about he'd be the next heir apparent to Jeff Gordon's legacy, which every young driver gets compared to Jeff Gordon when Gordon was coming up in his heyday, so that doesn't mean much. But he's finally starting to prove it there with Hendrick Motorsports. The big question, though, how much did that unintentional off time help him in the long run?
Apparently a lot.
Yeah, it feels like, having an enforced vacation from the day job was the best way for him to, I guess, get his mind right and run all the sprint car races.
And then I think he did a lot of racing this season, like a lot of dirt racing.
Yeah, he did a lot of dirt racing this year.
A lot of dirt racing, so maybe the secret is just track time.
Yeah. Maybe every driver should take a year off sabbatical before coming back to race. Now, don't do it the way Kyle Larson did it, but I think everyone could use, that breather. It's helped him a lot. You can just see he's come back with a renewed vigor, and he has really stomped the field all season long, the way that we did not think he was going to. On the other side of things, we saw some championship contenders get into some trouble at the latter stages of that race. We had Denny Hamlin have 2 issues. Martin Truex Jr. got taken out of the race due to issue with Daniel Suarez.
Kyle Busch's weekly speeding penalty.
Yeah, Kyle Busch getting a speeding penalty and apparently giving out one of the Steve's email addresses.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, apparently Kyle Busch does not like how the front ends work in the 550 package. I think he's made that clear. Apparently he got so angry he gave out Steve Phelps' email address on the radio at some point.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And
so
deserved.
We'll see how the 550 goes next year. These cars are going to have a lot more clearance off the ground than they do this year, so we might not have the issues we had this year with the package. But more importantly, the JGR team, we thought it would be 2 JGRs and 2 Hendricks going into that round, or going into the Final Four. They don't look so good right now. Do you think they bounce back in Kansas?
Maybe. That's a definite maybe, because if we all remember Kansas from last year, that track is really hard to pass at. Mm-hmm. So if they don't have the pace to get out in front, then I don't really see them. I see one of them making it, but both of them making it, no.
Well, they've got 3. Right now, Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch are the last 2 in the championship for 9 and 8 points in, respectively. Martin Truex Jr. currently out 22 points behind. But as we look at it, Joey Logano had a rare engine failure. He basically has to win to get in at this point. And then Chase Elliott, who really didn't do anything wrong, just didn't have a really strong race. And that's put him 5th, 8 points back. Some people are worried about whether or not Chase will be able to defend his championship, Michael and Chris. I'm not that worried about Chase. I'm terrified for Logano.
Yeah, understandably. Because Logano, Penske hasn't really been up there this year. Mm-hmm. So Logano's going to have to do basically what he did last year, and is just get in front and park his car there for as long as possible, if he has any shot at making it to the Final Four.
Yep. It's going to make Kansas a little bit more exciting than we would expect it. It also means going into Martinsville at the end of this round, somebody's going to end up getting sent again, which should be appointment viewing. If you can get to that Martinsville race, I suggest you go. If not, make sure you watch it, because it is going to be absolutely insane, and I can't wait to see it, man. It's going to be a fun championship. Right now, we've got Ryan Blaney in as well, a surprise championship 4 entrant. I didn't think he'd be up there. Had a decent run in Texas. Do you think he stays there, or is he going to get bumped out? Because I don't see Chase Elliott not making it back to Phoenix to defend his championship, and that 12 might end up being the odd man out in the end.
Yeah, I would say that I would definitely have Blaney on the outs going into the championship 4, and I think that what we're going to see from the championship 4 is 2 Hendrick cars, 1 Gibbs, and 1 Penske. And I think that if going down my projection route, I think Keselowski's we haven't seen a lot out of him, but he's been consistent enough to do pretty good. But I think Joey gets that last spot for the Penske cars. But really, from what we saw out of Ford's early on, I am surprised that even our playoffs had as many Fords, and I'm surprised that Penske's gone so deep. They were the only bright spot for Ford this year, but it's still good to see the Penske cars holding on so strong.
Yeah,
like
with
I
Chase.
said,
Oh, go ahead,
like
Michael.
I still say, I'm surprised Stewart Haas hasn't won a single race this year.
I'm also
There's a,
surprised.
there's a
You know
good
what? Stewart
chance they
Haas
don't
got
win one.
one. They got one with Almirola, but that was
Yeah,
in the
New
darkness,
Hampshire.
which was
Yep, New
admittedly
Hampshire.
a while ago. Yeah.
I mean, they've been somewhat consistent. I guess you could say that Harvick has been doing all right, but I mean, have you even heard Cole Custer's name besides if
I
he's
haven't
been
heard
wrapped
Cole
up in a?
Custer. I haven't heard Chase Briscoe.
To be honest with you, if I was a casual fan, I consider myself probably an upper tier in terms of NASCAR knowledge, at least more than the normal person. But yeah, you're right. Chase Briscoe, Cole Custer, we haven't heard their names really at all this season. They've been non-factors, and I think that that's surprising. But even just the lack of anything out of Kevin Harvick this year, I think, is the biggest surprise out of the Haas camp.
I think everyone's surprised that there's been nothing from Kevin Harvick. And then really the stagnation of Cole Custer. Like, I thought he'd take another step. I thought he would take a step up. Really hasn't gone anywhere. His results kind of the same or a little bit worse than last year. Just shows that the Fords here ending the Gen 6 era, not good. But we'll see what they do next year with the next gen. They definitely have the best looking next gen. The question is it going to race the best of all the next gens?
I would agree that they're definitely the best looking. I think the Camaro is actually a bit hideous, but I hope they race good. I really hope that this next generation of car really does what NASCAR is hoping that it will do. And if it makes good racing, then it's worth it.
It's the only way it's worth it, to be honest. And we'll see. People are going to overreact to the first mile and a half race, so I can't wait for that. But other than that, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm not really going to judge it by what happens at whatever this clash is supposed to be, because that's just going to be a wreck fest. And then the Daytona 500 is the Daytona 500. So you really can't do anything about that other than that's what the super speedway races might look like. But we'll see. But we still got to finish this season. And there was an interesting conversation midweek. I don't remember where Kyle Busch was, but he said that there isn't really a driver code anymore. And that came on the backdrop of Denny Hamlin and Chase Briscoe having issues, which then spilled out into Twitter. Or not to Twitter, onto Instagram. 40-year-old Denny Hamlin has for some reason turned savage on social media, and I love it. He's definitely going to win the social media NASCAR championship this year. I'll tell you that much. Whether or not he wins the actual championship remains to be seen. But it brings up an interesting question about the state of racing in NASCAR. And the way I look at it, when I was a child / teenager, and I think we're all around the same age, so when we were young, watching racing, you had the Jimmy Spencers and the Tony Stewarts, what I'll call the veteran enforcers that would take a young guy aside and say, hey, that's not how we race here. They don't just, put him in the freaking wall or something like that. Or even further back, Dale Earnhardt was kind of that way. Jeff Gordon randomly became that near the end with him always fighting people, which I thought was weird. We don't really have that anymore. There's really nobody that really enforces the rules of the racing road in turning somebody around if they do something stupid, or if one of these drivers or one of the youngins gets out of line too many times. You take them to the side in the garage during practice. Well, mainly we haven't had practice the last couple of years, but you take them to the side and you say, look, we don't do that here anymore, or we don't race like that up here. I think the Cup Series is missing that. You've got a couple of candidates to do it. Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch. Those type of guys.
Kyle, I don't think he should be the one to do that.
He probably shouldn't. I don't really know who on the Ford Kevin Harvick out the Ford camp.
No, definitely not Kevin Harvick.
I think Kurt would be a good one. I think
Kurt would be a great one for a lot of things.
Yeah, I think he'd be good because he is one of those guys that when he was a young gun, he had a temper, and we obviously are all at least somewhat aware of who he was as a younger man, and the turnaround that he has, the reputation that he's overcame and rebuilt. He would be the perfect guy to kind of be that leader of the garage and say, like, you're dumb and stupid. You're not dumb. Sorry, young. You're young and stupid. You're going to make mistakes. It's what you do with them that matters. And you do something stupid on the track, you learn from it, you move on, you apologize, and not everybody goes happy, but life goes on and people get over it. It's when you continually make those same mistakes, those same aggressive moves, that's when you start rubbing elbows and getting into altercations.
Yeah, you got to figure out a way to some of these youngins. Once we get back to practice / qualifying, whatever they're going to do next year, you're going to need some of those veterans. Kurt Busch definitely leading the charge because you can't have Kevin Harvick leading it. There's going to be a fight. And there's definitely going to be a fight if it's Hamlin or Truex or, God forbid, Kyle Busch. But a group of the veterans over the offseason need to get together and say, look, we're going to have to enforce the driving standards because NASCAR is not going to do it. They're not really going to step in until it gets to a point where it's threatening everybody else. But the drivers are going to have to get back to policing themselves again because we don't want NASCAR doing it like the FIA because, God, I hate that so much. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes because it sounds like the Cup drivers, or at least the JGR drivers, are annoyed at it because if you listen to the radio between Truex and Kyle Busch, they really don't like racing around the lap cars.
No, Kyle's obviously famous for some one-liners when it comes to the back of the pack cars, and I would have to agree with you that even some of these older guys that claim that they have the respect and the I don't know, not the manners, but I think you know what I'm trying to say, like the class, they still spew off in the media and they say things like they never even won a modified race. And so I think that when we're looking for some sort of driver leadership, you got to find the right person who still has the maturity, now to have the respect of every driver in that garage. And I do not think that Kevin Harvick, especially after this whole debacle with Chase Elliott calling him a 9-year-old and then acting like the 9-year-old, I really think that Kurt would be the only like veteran guy that I could think of who has calmed down lately and isn't crazy off the track.
We talk about this, I think, about every other week at this point, but you have to say it every time you bring up Kurt Busch. He has changed so much in 10 years, and that's a good thing. And I'll say it every week, to the youngins that don't get why we're so surprised at the way Kurt Busch acts. Go look up some of those races from 2002. I think Black Flags Matter may have even did a video on the Kurt Busch Jimmy Spencer rivalry. Go watch that, and that'll explain everything you need to know about the wilding that Kurt Busch was doing. Because earlier in his career, he was wilding. That is how bad it was. But he might have to step up. They're going to have to do something about these driving standards. Personally, I don't think it's that much. Is it as big as they bring it up to be? No, but then again, I'm not sitting in the seat, so I don't know how it feels. But we usually hear about this around playoff time, especially when we get to this particular round. Those guys out there aren't going to cut you any slack. You know, they're trying to finish their season strong too. So at the end of the day, you just kind of take the fact that everybody is racing hard, whether they're in the playoffs or not, because they're still competing for spots. You know, they're still competing for championship bonuses at the end of the year. A few cars in the back are trying to keep their charter, which 2311 is watching. So there's a lot going on in these last couple of races.
Definitely. And I don't think they're going to really want to cut corners with playoff drivers at all. But at the same time, you should respect that somebody's going for a championship.
They are. And the problem always comes around this time. You don't want to be the non-playoff car that causes issues with a playoff car, which brings up another good point before we have to take a break here. This Kevin Harvick, Chase Elliott situation.
Well,
supposedly NASCAR forced him to squash the beef. Both drivers say that it's over. I don't believe it's over. And I honestly think if Kevin Harvick is anywhere near Chase Elliott in Martinsville with a chance to keep Chase out the playoffs, he's going to do it. I don't care what
without
he
a doubt.
says. So, do we really think that rivalry is over?
I think it's
don't.
over.
You do?
I think it's over. Yeah, I think it's over because if NASCAR pulled them aside in the hauler and everything and told them, look, squash it, or else there will be consequences, I think, they'll have no choice but to squash it. But if Kevin Harvick's about to retire, or he just really doesn't care, then maybe. But if he cares about his ride and his stance in the sport right now, I think he just listens and just squashes it.
I don't think Harvick's gonna care about his off season starting 1 week earlier, especially with all the work they still have to do with the next gen car. What are we gonna call that car, by the way, when it's next year? Because it's not gonna be next gen anymore.
Let's call it Gen Z. I'm just kidding.
Current gen.
Oh God. I guess we can just call it Gen 7 at that point. But I don't think he's gonna care if he's gonna start his off season 1 week early. And I don't see NASCAR suspending him for the 500. It's not going to be that big of a deal. So, I really don't know what... I think it's not over, to be honest. And I think that if Chase is not locked in, if he doesn't win Kansas, I'd be watching Martinsville very intently anytime that 9 and 4 are around each other.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. This week, though, they're going to Kansas. Second race in the round of 8. This is a track that has had issues with passing due to the 550 package. Really one of the tracks that was the most hindered by the package, in my opinion. Going to be a track position game all day long, which means you may see some two-tire stops a lot, especially from the playoff contenders. We could see people getting crazy with the strategy, but this is one of those races where, unfortunately, you see the bad part of how this aero configuration works, and it's going to be one of those races where you hope this is the last time we're going to see racing like this. Because if it's this hard to pass with next-gen 550, people are not going to shut up on Twitter, and they're already not shutting up on Twitter. It's going to be a heck of a lot worse.
In all honesty, though, I think the new car is going to do just fine.
Yeah. And also, keeping it focused on the playoffs, this is where the start of the Logano-Kenseth mini rivalry began, which ended with Kenseth absolutely dumping Logano at Martinsville. Could we see the seeds of something else get dropped for 2 weeks from now if two of the playoff drivers have a run-in? Because we know that this is going to be the race everyone wants to win, because you don't want to go to Martinsville and have to try to win your way in that way. You want to get it done here instead of going to that madhouse to try to win, especially if you're not good there.
Yeah, Martinsville is going to be definitely the crazy race.
Yeah.
Just like it was last year.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if you look, though, the Martinsville, who wins there definitely has a big impact on who wins at Phoenix. Well, not necessarily always Phoenix, but you win Martinsville, and statistically, you got a pretty good shot at the championship if we look at the last handful of years anyway.
Yep.
Well, I don't know. I think people sandbag for Martinsville, honestly, because when I watched the race at Martinsville, the people who were like casually in the back weren't always racing up front in Martinsville, but at Phoenix you had the top four in like the first four places.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just a matter of like which package they bring to.
Well, it'll be $750 for that one, so
yeah.
We'll see what happens. Well, you can watch Kansas this weekend. Starts at 3 o'clock on NBCSN. Can also be heard on the Motor Racing Network. MRN will have the last 3 races of the season, including the championship race in Phoenix. So cannot wait to see how this championship wraps up. And speaking, going for a championship, one of our sponsors, Southern California Warriors semi-pro football team, is trying to do just that. Unfortunately, they dropped one to the Kings this past weekend, and they entered the last 2 games of the season and with an even 4-4 record. So we'll be pulling for the Warriors in their next contest. And folks, the world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organization. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get filmed, to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just trying to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been out on a quest to earn titles to give players second chances since 2007. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere else in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance. If you love your sport, you may get that second chance you've been waiting for as an athlete. Find out more information on Twitter at SoCal Warriors, Instagram at Southern California _Warriors, and Facebook at Southern California Warriors. We'll be right back here on the Extra Mile iSports Radio. When we come back, we're getting ready for COTA, but one driver has decided not to drive to survive any longer. We'll explain on the other side of this break here on the Extra Mile on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Attention, all sports fans! If you're someone who wakes up each morning with lists of sporting events to go along with your to-do list for the day, then you just might be a diehard. The world of sports is as vast as the ocean is deep, including the major leagues, the minor leagues, the college, and everything in between. This is me, your boy Larry B of IE Sports Radio, welcoming you to join me every Monday evening at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on The Defining Moment, a show that focuses on what really matters in the sports world, sports themselves, and nothing outside of them. Once again, tune in for The Defining Moment with me, your boy Larry B, every Monday evening at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on IE Sports Radio, right here on Spreaker.com. We'll see you there.
To the Soccer Scoreboard Show with your host, Gabriel Montoya. This is the show for soccer, football fans, or whatever you call the beautiful game. Every week, I tackle the latest and greatest news from around the soccer world. From the English Premier League, to the World Cup, to MLS, Liga MX, and more. You can listen to the Soccer Scoreboard Show and our lineup of fantastic guests every Friday at noon here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, sports fans? You're looking for a different type of sports talk show, something you haven't heard before. You got to check out the BS3 Sports Show every other Saturday on 2 Live Stews Radio, 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern. Sports talk at its finest. Always have great guests, playing some good hip-hop. You don't want to miss it. Make sure to tune in to the BS3 Sports Show every other Saturday at 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern.
Hey businesses, are you looking to background check a new hire on? Let Kit Freeman take care of that for you. Kit founded and has managed Background Check International since 1994, and he's here to help you with the screening process. Contact Kit and let him help make the hiring process that much easier. This business is used for professional background checks and not for the use of any crime such as identity theft or any other illegal activity. Check his website out at bcint.com or on Facebook, Background Check International. Thank you so much to BCI for sponsoring IE Sports Radio. We're back here on the Extra Mile. Time to get into Formula One, and Drive to Survive has become one of the best, not just motorsports reality shows, but one of the best reality shows in recent memory, and has been one of the primary driving factors of the resurgence of the Formula One fan base here in the United States. However, one important driver is not going to be a part of it any longer. Max Verstappen has decided he wants to no longer take part in Drive to Survive due to how they take different segments of interviews and cut it up to use with specific scenes in the actual show. He feels that it's too dramatized and wants nothing else to do with it. Well, as Christopher Lehman pointed out to us in our little text thread earlier today, that's kind of a problem when Max was just voted the most popular Formula One driver. Now, everyone knows that Max is basically the heir apparent to Lewis Hamilton's throne once Lewis finally decides to hang it up, if Max doesn't win the championship this year. So it presents a quandary for the show where one of the sport's most influential drivers isn't on it. Now, Christopher, you brought up the question of whether or not they should force him. You think they should find a way to get him back, either forcing it or changing the show a little bit to do it. Talk about your feelings on it, and then I'll go through what I feel about it.
So I think you touched on it pretty well. I think, especially with Max being voted the most popular driver, and he is most certainly the heir apparent to Lewis in terms of the success that comes with the results. So he's obviously stringing together a lot of success starting this year. And, how do you get popular? You're successful. So I think that by him saying that he does not want to be a part of it, and I understand why. I can empathize that he says they take interviews and then they cut it all up and then they'll just put it sporadically throughout to add to drama created by Netflix. And he kind of said there's already enough drama where they don't need to be creating new ones. So from the human aspect, from Max, I see his point of view. I agree with his point of view. But at the same time, for the longevity of the sport, and I think this even comes down to Christian Horner talking to him and saying, you need to take this with a different approach. And, you're the future of the sport, and a lot of revenue, a lot of sponsorship. Not that I think Red Bull has to worry about sponsorship. But there's a lot of benefits from merch sales and exposure. I mean, there's a lot of good that would come with having Max establish a large fan base in the United States. And for the FIA themselves, the recent talks is, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in a couple minutes, but a lot of people want the U.S. to have 3 races, not 2. And without Max being on that show, I don't think the popularity of Formula One stays in the U.S. once Lewis is retired. You're now relying on Max to carry a lot of your viewership in a similar way that Chase Elliott has basically been handed and said, NASCAR is on your shoulders now. Do what you need to do to keep her going. That's how it's going to be with Max. Maybe not quite as much, but I think they need to, even like Formula One saying, to Netflix, we need to have some creative control over how you edit, and maybe something like that brings Max back in. And it might even help the show out, to be honest with you, without creating fake drama. There's enough going on already. And what sucks is that Max hasn't been participating in the season that they're filming now. So this is the year where this whole season would be Max versus Lewis. And now we're only getting one side of that. And it's a shame. And I think that they need to sit down with Max and figure out what it's going to take to get him back on, because they need him. And a lot of things are contingent upon him being on that show, I think.
I think this would be the one year that he needs to be on it, man. I mean, you finally got Max where he wants, and he's not on it. You're missing a huge part of the championship battle. So they got to find a way to get him back on there. And the other thing is, you want to be champion, you want to be the face of Formula One, this is the type of stuff that comes with it. It's glitz and glam. You get to hold the championship. You get to hold that big trophy at the end of the year, and you're a world champion. But it comes with responsibilities. And one of those responsibilities is being the marketing face of the sport. You are the ambassador of Formula One worldwide once you get that world championship moniker attached to your name. And you've seen some drivers do some good things with that. You've seen Lewis with his stance on racial equality. You've seen in the most recent years with Max Verstappen Sebastian Vettel, what he's been doing with the environment. They've had some other drivers like Kimi Räikkönen and Fernando Alonso just go off and do their own things. But for the most part, nowadays, the championship comes with a lot of positives, but also a lot of responsibilities. And it's something, he wants to win the championship. It's just something he's got to deal with. And you may not like how the show's run, as far as I'm going to say. Tough crap. It's building your audience, And it's one of the major reasons that you're going to continue to be able to get paid to do this sport into 2022 and beyond. So it's something he may need to just, for lack of a better term, get over it and just move on and find a way to deal with the situation. Maybe work with the folks at Netflix to maybe not build up or not cut up the interviews so much to what they're doing. Michael, what do you think?
I think he should speak. I think he should talk. I mean, like you were saying, this is when somebody's finally been able to push Lewis Hamilton as much as him, and I think definitely having his input or his voice in all the matters that's been going on, it needs to happen. Drive to Survive is honestly our only way of hearing what these drivers have to say outside of, what these teams want them to say. So we need his voice. And when it comes to the drama that he doesn't want to spark up anymore, I get that. But it's Formula One, man. The paddock talks, no matter what information they have.
Mm-hmm.
He's just gonna have to accept that, because whatever you say, somebody's gonna take it on Twitter and amplify it.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever people think you said off camera, people are honestly still gonna amplify it. So it's best to just say what you're thinking instead of, just letting it stay hidden. Because he is the face of Formula One now. He's kind of the poster child. So his voice is definitely going to want to be heard in a lot more ways than just Drive to Survive. So I think he should go ahead and talk and do the interviews.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my take on it. Like, he should still do it.
It's something that they're going to have to figure out, especially with Formula One trying to have 3 races in America. Personally, I don't know how that's going to go. They've already got the race coming up in Miami next year, and COTA is supposed to be around for long term. There's been conversations about they might go back to Indianapolis. Apparently, folks from a prospective Formula One Grand Prix in Las Vegas are supposed to be in Austin, Texas this weekend. I know they want 3 races. The question is, should they?
I want to say no, because go ahead, Chris.
No, you go ahead.
Well, the reason I'm saying no is because there are still a lot of other countries with a lot other tracks that we still haven't seen. And Germany still probably wants to come back. And then if we get too many races, well, a lot of these teams are going to be stretched thin.
Mm-hmm. We do need to get back to Germany.
Yeah, so it's just like, I think 2 is fine. I think 1 is still stretching it, because this is a cross-country sport. Mm-hmm. And all countries, well, maybe not all, but countries that can't afford to be in it should definitely be in it. And we should only go there 1 time, and that's it. So to have 2, I feel like it's stretching it, but 3, I feel like it's kind of crazy.
So I think that 2 is good, and I can understand the argument for 3. If you look at the size of our country alone, we are very large compared to a lot of other countries, specifically just Europe as a whole. So, and then population wise, we also have a rather large population. We're not too dense. We're quite spread out, but I think that there are other, like you were saying, there are other very populous countries that deserve a race, such as Germany, and we obviously want Lewis Hamilton, who wants to explore South Africa, and get something going down there. And if you want to use the land mass justification, then Russia deserves like 3/4 of the schedule.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like they have like 10 time zones over there. So if you're trying to run down we'll have a West Coast, a middle, and an East Coast. Well, Russia's up for about half your schedule if you want to do 1 a time zone. So I think 2 is a good number. I think 2 is something that there's going to be a lot of excitement around both of them, because they're going to be rather spread out. And I think 3, you almost begin going to the Americans are greedy. There are some very passionate countries out there with large fan bases. And while we have a pretty big population, a pretty big fan base, I think that there are a lot of other countries out there deserving of a single race as opposed to us having 3.
You definitely need to get back to Germany somehow. You need to get back to Malaysia somehow. That would be nice. You know, there's a lot of countries you still need to get to, and you get to a point of oversaturating the product, and we've already talked about it. These races are expensive. It's not like NASCAR or anything else. It takes a lot of money to go to one Formula One race, let alone 3 of them in your own country. So it gets to a point of, how badly are you stretching thin your fan base when you put 3 races in the same country, even if it's split up?
Just a lot of money. Like, people can honestly go bankrupt off of this stuff. So, give or take, I still think it's stretching it by a lot.
And the way it is right now, they have sold out all the tickets for the U.S. Grand Prix. So that place is going to be nice and full when we get when we get there this weekend. And speaking of that United States Grand Prix, this has been the stranglehold of one Lewis Hamilton, and he desperately needs that race to come through if he wants to reclaim this championship lead. But there's 2 things that are going to be playing against that team this weekend. 1, can the Mercedes strategy team get it together? Please. And 2, what's the engine reliability going to do? Because whoever has to take another engine penalty is probably going to be the one who loses the championship at this point. Those 2 things are playing against that team, especially as we were talking all during the break, or not during the break, before the show started. Bottas already had to take a second extra engine. There might be concern about whether or not Hamilton has to do it as well.
Right.
Yeah, I think I think even Toto had said that don't rule out another engine penalty for Lewis, and at the same time you've got Christian Horner saying don't rule out another one for Verstappen. So it's really the 23 race schedule for next year. It's almost getting interesting again, like how we talk about endurance races. It wasn't about who finished the race first. It was about who finished the race at all. 24 hours later, whose car is still on the track. And it's going to be interesting to see who sacrifices a little bit of power or, what have you, in exchange for a little more durability. But I think it makes it fun. I do enjoy the idea that there's going to be a lot of engine penalties next year if they don't increase the number of allotted engines. And I think it's going to make for fun strategy. I think 23 races is fun. I don't want to see 24 or anything more than that. 23 is we'll see how it goes type of way. And NASCAR, take notes, because 30 plus is too much.
We need to get down to 30 when it comes to NASCAR. And as far as Formula One is concerned, they are at their limit, especially when you talk about they have to go across continents. Like 23 races, more than enough, I think. And they probably need to figure out a way to unfortunately figure out what races can they cut from the schedule to get something more manageable, especially with how COVID is still going to be an issue for international travel for a little while longer.
These are all things to consider when having a race schedule.
Yep.
Also, another track that needs to come back is China.
Yeah. What are they going to do with that? Because this is going to be their second year off the schedule. So, actually, third year off the schedule because they didn't run in 2020, obviously. Didn't run in 2021. They're not going to run in 2022. So that's 3 seasons they've missed. How and where do you put them back on the schedule? Because Imola wants to stay, by the way. They want a 10-year deal just like some of these other teams are getting. Or some of these other tracks are getting. So you got to figure that out. There's a lot that they have to consider going forward on where they're going to race without extending the schedule to the point it becomes unwieldy.
I mean, that's where hard decisions have to be made. And I think you have to start looking. I mean, it kind of sucks, but you have to start looking at countries that get multiple races. It would suck to go and take a country's only race, and then on the flip side of it, like Monaco, you can never not go to Monaco. It just wouldn't be a Formula One season. As much as it is a snore fest going there, there's still a lot of prestige.
I mean, you could go without Monaco.
I don't know. I think you
have to go to Monaco for the like historical.
No.
Yeah.
You have to.
What? Okay, see, I hate Monaco with a passion. Like, if that place disappeared into the sun, at least the racetrack, I wouldn't be mad. Like, it's is the worst Formula One race. Yeah.
2-on-1. 2-on-1, Daryl. Pick your battles.
I'm not going to win this fight, but I just don't like this racetrack.
I don't like watching it either, but you can't just leave it out.
It's a very prestigious race. I would say that is one of the few where even no matter what the product is on the track, there is so much off the track, and that's. I mean, when people think about Formula One, I think even people who don't really know what Formula One is, they all say Monaco. Like, oh, Monaco, right? And I think that's a huge part of the history of F1, and I think that's one of the races that I would consider almost untouchable on the schedule.
It's like their Daytona 500, kind of.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you can't just get rid of it no matter how it is.
Fine.
But we know it's boring.
Oh yeah, it's definitely I'll put you to sleep, but
definitely a race one on Saturday, not Sunday. But one thing that is going to be, won't be one this Sunday, we still got races to go, is nearest the win, going to Kansas and going to Texas again for COTA. I think Lewis Hamilton is going to continue that streak and retake the championship points lead. He's going to snag the win at Texas. As far as what's going to happen at Kansas, I think Chase Elliott is going to knock one of those Penske guys out. I think he takes the win there at Kansas as well. So that's my picks. Who do you guys have?
Chris, you can go first.
All right. So with COTA, who did I go with last time? Where were we at last?
Texas.
Yeah.
No. Okay, I'll do NASCAR. I was asking for Formula One where we were last.
Oh, Formula One, we were last at
Turkey.
Turkey.
Turkey. Okay, and Bottas won that. And yep. Okay. So with Formula One, let's go with Hamilton, even though I don't want that. And for NASCAR, Kyle Larson. because I didn't pick. Who did I pick last week for NASCAR? I think I picked Denny last week.
Yeah.
So let's go with Kyle again. I almost think that Kyle could sweep this round, to be honest.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. If you want to play in the last few rounds of Nearest the Win, make sure you get your pick with hashtag Nearest the Win. Well, it's time to wait
Michael
for the
didn't
flag.
go.
Oh, sorry, Michael, go.
I was just like,
I forgot. I'm sorry.
But for Formula One, I'm gonna go with Max Verstappen. And NASCAR, I've always been low key a Ryan Blaney fan, so I'm gonna say he did it done in Kansas.
All right, now we're done with Nearest the Win. If you want to get your picks in, hashtag Nearest the Win with who you think is going to win. And of course, if you want to follow us on social media, I'm at DKJunior12. Chris is at Fiji Sims. Michael is at Michael_Wart25. And make sure you follow at the Extra Mile IESR on Twitter, as well as the IE Sports Radio, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages. And if you missed any episode of any IE Sports Radio show, it can be seen anywhere, or heard, anywhere where you find your podcast. So check that out as well. Well, that is it for this episode of The Extra Mile. For Christopher and Michael, I'm Daryl. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you at the next green flag. Good night, everybody.